So, Aster. Aster is a family of anti-air missiles that are used in a naval context. They're launched from the Sea Viper, which I've talked about before, PAAMSS or PAAMSE systems, which is, either Sea Viper or the Franco-Italian variant. Technically, the missile itself, Aster, is a Franco-Italian invention. It's an all-weather missile manufactured by EuroSAM, which is a firm I talked about again, which is Euro surface-to-air missiles, or probably the French equivalent of that, which, again, it's sort of a combination. EuroSAM is a combination of MBDA France and MBDA Italy, and Thales also collaborates on Aster. So the idea, overall, with Aster, which was developed in the sort of 80s and 90s to maximise naval anti-air capability, was that it could successfully carry out point and zone defence. That is, that with the utilisation of radar, really effective radar, which I talked about in the Sea Viper video, it can go and hit targets, incredibly well and provide sort of zone defence to a fleet. And that's what we see with Aster 30. Aster 15, which is the shorter range missile that's sort of used more for point defence, and defending the local area of the ship, let's say if it's going out on its own, is potent on its own. But what I really think actually shines, what I think, ironically like the Aster Star, what I think really does well and has really proven its use is Aster 30. So that's what I'd like to mainly focus on today. Aster 30, in its time, since its development for sort of zone defence for strike groups as a whole for, I guess, mid to long range capability, it's been adapted a lot. So basically, again, it started to act as a wide area defence for ships or strike groups, and then it was developed from there. It was developed in blocks, and basically it started with it allowing interception in Block 1. So this is Block 0 is sort of the classic Aster 30, which can take out normal air targets, which is potent on its own. But you see Block 1, which integrates the ability to take out short-range ballistic missiles, among other things. And then it was developed to take out medium-range ballistic missiles, and now, far longer-range, more manoeuvrable, less predictable ballistic missiles. In any case, Aster 30, it's, used for the Type 45 destroyer, which really does just show how potent a weapon it is, even in its Block 0 version, because the UK do still operate the Block 0 version, which, doesn't actually have anti-ballistic missile defense, despite the fact there are other missiles, that are coming in to carry out that capability. Even the one that cannot combat ballistic missile threats, tactical ballistic missile threats, the UK has shown it's really potent. So the Block 0 variant, it's shown its power in intercepting drones, particularly at low altitude and high speed. All in all, it's designed to combat a lot, as anti-air systems generally have to, because they have to be versatile. It's designed to combat high-performance, advanced combat aircraft, UAS, helicopters, sea-skimming supersonic missiles, and that includes the anti-ship variety, of course. That's hugely important for the protection of a strike group, and of course ballistic missiles for some variants. Something else it's quite potent at is basically categorizing assets based upon their radar or communicative value for the enemy, effectively. So it is classed to an extent as an anti-radiation missile. Now, what that means is not that it can, blow up microwaves or something like that, but it is to say that it can, home in on radio emission sources and basically prioritize those in order to strike the nexus point, as it were, of communication for the enemy. And that's brilliant for use against active threats and taking out infrastructure that the enemy needs to operate. That's radar, radio receivers, and actually radar jammers that they may be using on technology of Allied forces. And this is actually hugely important because the prioritization of high-value targets, if possible, packing the most punch to enemy tactics and strategy in a single shot, makes Aster hugely efficient. It means it can do a lot of damage to, enemy infrastructure, technology, vehicles, ability, tactics, strategy, and it maximizes its shot, it maximizes its power, and that is why it's been so long-lived. And that's why it, continues to be, to an extent, operated, particularly by France and Italy. So, in order to get to its target, let's talk about the missile itself. Along with, for the UK, Sea Viper system, but more widely, PAAMS, it uses a solid propellant rocket booster, and it uses hot launch to basically position itself within ideal trajectory. If you look it up, I do recommend it. There are brilliant videos of it basically launching and getting into position so that it can, seek out the target as best as possible. And what that means is that arcs are avoided, because arcs are incredibly fuel inefficient. So it maximizes fuel efficiency, which gives it longer range, which is a very good thing. Once it's used this solid rocket booster, the idea is that sort of section will drop off after vertical launch. Once it's past this stage, and it's actually in sort of mid-guidance area, it will use inertial guidance and utilize refreshed target data, which is transmitted by an engagement module it has through its radar, which is, as I've said before, multifunction. So for the UK, that would be basically in conjunction with the PAAMS Samson. And in its terminal phase, in the really important phase, once it's found its way to the target, basically aided by the Sea Viper, it homes in on its target through electromagnetic active seeker, which is actually what makes it really, really good at operating in all weathers and finding stuff that's moving incredibly quickly. And it's basically the equivalent, let's say, on land of millimeter radar active seekers. And this makes it not only really well positioned with excellent aerodynamics, but it gives it the ability to operate at high altitude and still be maneuverable, because it has that basically fuel efficiency and it has that accuracy. It can rely upon precision, meaning it can travel faster. Oh, and also the control of both aerodynamic force and sort of aerodynamics and force through its lateral thrusters give it the ability to maneuver and direct the munition in basically the worst point of the enemy vehicle. That is to say that, accompanied with its seeker, it will land slap bang in the middle of a target, exactly where the enemy does not want the munition, because that will do the most damage. The missile, again, itself, beyond guidance, is just potent on its own. So, as I've said, it uses this solid propellant and then the two-stage motor to guide itself to the target with the aid of the Sea Viper system. It can travel to an altitude, high altitude, of 20 kilometers, and it travels really quickly, Mach 4.5, which means that its range, as well as the radars that operate alongside it, for the ship's inherent systems and launch systems, mean that it can get to the target and neutralize it quickly before they can even get in range. So, technically, I guess, I don't know if it applies for ships, but if it were an air or ground missile, it would be standoff. It weighs 450 kilograms, so it is perhaps heavier, but it has to be because it incorporates a lot of fuel, and it's a ship-launched missile, and it has a diameter of 180 millimeters and a length of 4.9 meters. In regard to the warhead, I don't know, I haven't been able to find precisely how heavy the warhead is, as I would usually do, but nonetheless, it shouldn't be messed around with. It's designed really, even with the earlier blocks, it's designed to break through the shells of tactical ballistic missiles with huge precision, making it really, really effective against them, and it uses a proximity fuse to activate a blast fragmentation warhead. So it doesn't really get messed around, and it does mess other things up. it can penetrate through some really, really tough stuff, which makes it powerful against even armoured targets in the air, which, apologies, that's the bell, which generally it wouldn't actually have to target in a naval context. All in all, it's really potent, it can do a lot of damage, it moves incredibly quickly, has an incredibly powerful warhead, has incredibly powerful penetration, has brilliant tracking, has excellent precision, and is all round. A really brilliant munition, so I'll leave it there.